Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina, and I am the Capability Building Coordinator for Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up is a part of the Info Exchange Group. Info Exchange is a not-for-profit social enterprise that has delivered technology for social justice for over 25 years. With over 100 staff across Australia and New Zealand, we tackle the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar, Surviving the Facebook Apocalypse, which will be presented by Alicia Hancock from Hancock Creative. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box on your webinar panel and I'll be able to assist you through there. If you have any questions during the session, please also type it into the questions box and we'll answer them in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please note that your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you are on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar. If possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you shortly after the webinar ends. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate it if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback. That's all from me for now. I'll hand it over to Alicia to get things started. Alicia, I think you need to unmute yourself.
There you go. Sorry, it was just taking a second to come up for me today. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tina. Thank you so much for the fantastic introduction. I'm really excited about this particular topic today and having so many people joining me in for this webinar. One of the most common things I get asked around social media and not-for-profit is what on earth has gone on with Facebook the last year or two? And I get this question all the time. So to give you a bit of background, as Tina said, my name is Alicia Hancock. I'm the director of Hancock Creative, and we specialise in helping not-for-profits and social enterprises grow their impact by telling their stories more effectively online through social media and digital channels. And for a lot of organisations, that of course means Facebook. We know there's 15 million active users on Facebook right now in Australia, so it's a really huge opportunity for causes to get online, spread their message, attract volunteers, donations, or build brand awareness. But what has happened in the last few years to Facebook has had a dramatic change on a lot of organisations. And that's what I really wanted to dig into with you in this webinar today. Now, as we get kicked off, I want you just to jump into that question section that Tina mentioned and let me know, what are your biggest challenges with Facebook right now? I'd love to see what common themes there are, where you're getting stuck, what sort of things you really want help with. And hopefully I can then dig into that as I go through each of these different sections and each of the different topics of this presentation and answer any other questions we haven't had a chance to cover at the end of the session. So if you want to jump in now to that questions and just share what are your biggest challenges around Facebook, whether it's about driving the outcomes you want or reaching enough people, I would love to know what they look like. Tina, do we have anything coming through yet?
Yes, we have lots coming through. Organic reach is one. New content. Can't manage groups as an organisation. Very frustrating. Lack of engagement. Decreased visibility of posts. Engagement is a huge issue. Operating on zero budget. Organic traffic, building an audience, reaching more people, donations by giving funds. Wow,
yeah,
lots and lots coming through.
Look, I love all of those. So they're some of the really common ones that we're obviously trying to battle with Facebook. To give you a bit of context about this Facebook apocalypse, which is what a lot of marketers have been calling this for about the last 12 months. So last year, there was a massive change to the algorithm on Facebook, which meant a lot of pages that were getting great engagement suddenly dropped really dramatically, and reach was much, much lower. And even still over the last year, there's been more and more evolutions to that algorithm that has really impacted every business, but even more so causes, because for a lot of you, as someone rightly pointed out, have zero budget. So if you don't have any type of marketing budget, social media is often your best opportunity to reach people and build awareness. I'm also a massive advocate of having tangible outcomes. So when we talked about, somebody mentioned there about donations, that's really what success on Facebook needs to look like. Donations, volunteers, something practical as an outcome. Otherwise, if we focus too much on just how many people we're going to reach, we're going to get pretty frustrated with Facebook and how it is today. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this topic. What I'm really looking to cover, I've got 9 key points that I want to go to. So what we want to talk about is what is the Facebook apocalypse, why it's happened, but then I want to go through some practical things and the biggest opportunities that are available now for nonprofits on Facebook, because this is how you're going to cut through above other people. So the first is about creating meaningful interaction. Then we're going to talk about how we're driving ROI and outcomes. We're going to talk about Facebook stories and by extension, Instagram stories. We're going to talk about live video. We're going to talk about groups, paid advertising, the messenger tool, Facebook giving, and multi-platform strategies. At the moment, if, basically I sat down and went, where are the biggest opportunities in Facebook right now for cause organization? And it's these 9 that I want to go through with you. So what is the Facebook apocalypse? Essentially what it is the massive changes that happen to the Facebook algorithm. For those of you who aren't as familiar with the term algorithm, basically it's I kind of visualize it as the little, robots that sit behind Facebook that determine who your content gets shown to and who it doesn't. Because what's happened on Facebook is now there are 15 million active users in Australia. And in fact, there are so many users on Facebook worldwide that if Facebook was a country, it would now be the biggest country in the world, that Facebook now has to put an algorithm in place. Because otherwise what happens is when the average Australian is connected to 267 people, plus groups, plus brands and businesses, they can't deliver all of that content to each individual. So Facebook's algorithm is designed to tell it what content is the most relevant to me today. So it's going to show stuff from this morning, last night, whatever it thinks right now I'm most likely to interact and it's the most meaningful to me. That's the job of the algorithm. What it actually means for cause organizations though, the vast majority of us are running Facebook pages. And for a page, the reach of Facebook pages have significantly dropped every single year for at least the last 7 or 8 years I've been doing this. Reach organically, which is organically means unpaid, has gotten really, really low. And as a result, when you post content on your Facebook page, only a small percentage of people will actually ever see your post now. So this is what the Facebook apocalypse is. Suddenly we had great cut through, great audiences, and it's no longer the case. Now, this is what organic or unpaid reach has, what's going on in this space in the last few years. So going back to 2010, when I first started teaching this, we've gone from 19% organic reach to very, very low. And this stats only went up to 2016. And we know right now that it's even lower. We are quite literally going towards what marketers have been calling for a while, Facebook zero. Basically, that means zero organic reach and engagement. Right now, the stats show us in Facebook from a page, organic reach is 0.06%. It is extremely, extremely small. So essentially what that means, if like 1,000 people like your Facebook page and you post with no strategy, no engagement, no advertising, only 6 people are going to see your content. So it's a really small amount of reach. This is the biggest challenge of the apocalypse that most people have to overcome. And I want to talk about why that is and some of the ways you can overcome that. The first thing you need to do is stop thinking in terms of page likes. Page likes don't mean anything anymore because that organic reach is so low. Basically, 7 or 8 years ago, we were going, oh, we want 10,000 likes on our page. And the more likes we had, the more successful we were. It's no longer the case. More likes just mean we've got more likes. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a better outcome or better result, better engagement rate or anything in your online content. Instead, I want you to think more about the outcomes and the results. So is it about brand awareness? Is it about donations? Is it about volunteers? It doesn't matter if 1,000 people or 10,000 people like your page. If you're getting the outcome for your organization, that's what's more important. So the truth is the way to succeed on Facebook has really dramatically changed. 7 or 8 years ago, when I first started doing this, all you needed to do was create some interesting content. you had to post regularly, and you just had to do something that was different to everybody else. And that's all you needed. And the audience just naturally caved. It is not the case anymore. And we really have to rethink the way we're creating our strategies on Facebook if you're going to succeed on this platform in 2019, 2020. So the first thing you need to know about is what we call meaningful interaction. So what does that actually mean? Some of you might be familiar with the term of meaningful interaction. It's because it's what Mark Zuckerberg said in his announcement last year that they were going to start prioritizing on social. So basically, he did this one giant post on Facebook that talked about the big changes in the algorithm, what they were trying to achieve, and what that was all about. The comment that's most valuable is this one. I'm changing the goal. The goal I give our products team from focusing on helping you find relevant content to helping you have more meaningful interaction. So their priority of Facebook was always about getting you in front of relevant content. It's now the focus is on having content that you're going to meaningfully interact with. And it sounds like a very minor change, but it was actually a huge shift for the way the algorithm worked. Probably the biggest single shift it's had until the one it's having right at the moment, where there's a massive change in that push as well. And a lot of that's been driven by the privacy concerns. Most of you will know they were in front of the Senate answering questions. There's been some privacy breaches. So the priority has gone back to privacy and security this year, which is affecting potential reach for pages as well. So essentially what this happens with meaningful interaction is I've taken a screenshot here from a video that Facebook released about how they are bringing people closer together. And what they're essentially doing is every piece of content gets like a quality score. So this quality score of this content is a 2, this one's a 1.7, this one's a 0.6, and that determines organically how many people your post is going to reach without paying for it. So what you need to do to create meaningful interaction is to be much more strategic with your content. So my top lessons on being meaningful interaction and being strategic, you have to be crystal clear on who your audience is. So many not-for-profits and causes, and some of you have been on one of these webinars with me before and would have heard me talking about this. If you're trying to talk to everyone on social media, so you want to talk to your volunteers and your donors and your retirees who all come along and help out at your events, and you're trying to talk to all of them with the same piece of content in your Facebook page, you're really not going to succeed in reaching anyone. If you have really diverse audiences on Facebook, you're better off using the geo-targeting or the age targeting and reach impression tool within Facebook just to have that post seen by that part of your audience. So if you're not 100% sure, like if I was sitting across the table with you right now and went, tell me who your audience is. If you can't tell me how old they are, what gender they are, what they're interested in, where they shop, what they like to do, what their passions are, what gets them excited, what's going to make them want to work with you or not want to work with you, then this is the single thing you need to fix before doing anything else I talk about in this webinar. You need to understand who you're trying to talk to. So who is your ideal donor? It doesn't mean someone else isn't going to donate on Facebook, but it means you're more likely to get your ideal donor. The flow on from that is you need to know what that person cares about. You need to give them value. So you need to think about offering them value before you ask for something in return. So to create meaningful interaction, 80% of your content has to be about your audience, what they care about, what they want to know about, what they want to talk about, what gets them fired up, and not about you. A lot of not-for-profits tend to go one of two ways. You either only do the ask stuff, we need a volunteer, we need donations, we're fundraising again, or we only build community and we never ask for anything. So there's a really important to have a balance, but right now it would be 80% needs to be on giving value. And that's how you create meaningful interaction. If you're talking about things that I'm interested in, you give me advice that's useful for me. If you give me practical tips I can apply in my life, that's where my meaningful interaction is going to come from. And I've got some examples of that a little bit later in the presentation of what meaningful interaction can turn into. So the second one's about driving ROI. I know ROI is not necessarily a term everyone's familiar with, but it's a return on investment. So what I want you to look at here is not numbers like reach or like or tenuous numbers. You can reach 100,000 people in a month on Facebook, but if it's not driving people to a particular outcome, it's still probably just wasting your time. I know that can be a little bit hard to get your head around. We need to move away from vanity-based metrics. Oh, we've got more likes on our page than, you know, the charity over here, and instead focus on more about what do we actually need as an organization and how are we going to achieve that. So not worrying about just attracting those likes to you anymore, instead focusing on what you're going to do with them and what it looks like. So here's an example from one of my clients, Sexual Health Quarters in WA. So one of the things they realized is they had transitioned to a new brand. They'd moved away from family planning to be called Sexual Health Quarters. And a lot of their content was very corporate and very dry, and we wanted to make it a little bit more fun. This little campaign here is something we called the emoji campaign. Their goal was to get more teenagers booking in for clinic time to learn more about sexual health. So very simple campaign. You can see we used emojis all the way through it. We wanted to make it a little bit fun because we wanted to appeal to that younger audience. This one little campaign, and there was just a few series of posts very similar to this, tripled the number of people booking to use their service in their ideal target market, because it's a really clear audience fit and also a really clear drive to an outcome. So we want free appointments, we want them in September, and we want them to be from people under the age of 18. And that now flows through all the content they create. This was posted just the other day on the May the 4th, you know, May the 4th be with you, the Star Wars thing. So they're always doing funny, lighthearted stuff that tie back to their main campaign. And that's how they engage with their community and build interaction. So when they do have an ask campaign, it gets somewhere. So when I talk about ROI, here's another example from Zonta House Refuge. And they're a domestic violence refuge shelter. And one of the key things they needed was obviously donations in forms of goods for people that they're working with. So they spent a few months really working on this meaningful interaction stuff, building a sense of community, giving value, talking to people, interacting. So then when they did a post like this, as you can see, not professionally designed, very simple graphic they've created themselves with a really simple message, can you help? If you look over to the right-hand side, 181 shares. They have given me permission to share this next slide. This actually gives you the data behind this Facebook post. So it reached nearly 12,500 people. It was shared hundreds of times. There was comments on the shares, there was shares of the shares. But the most important thing out of this was that they got enough donated underwear, pajamas, stuff they needed to take the shelter 6 months worth of stuff. So that's a practical ROI from creating that meaningful interaction and then building the community and then driving people somewhere. All right, I hope you're all with me so far with this. It sounds so simple, I know, but trust me, it's not as simple as it sounds, and it does work. If you just follow these steps, you will find a massive shift in your results and outcomes on your Facebook page. The third big opportunity is a little bit of a different one for you. It's about exploring the stories feature. So there's Facebook stories and also Instagram stories. So essentially what happened is Snapchat took off in Australia, and the main attraction of Snapchat was this behind the scenes, real and raw video and photos that disappeared after a short period of time. Quite literally, Instagram publicly announced they were borrowing this feature from Snapchat and embedded it into Instagram, and it's now also available in Facebook. A lot of people in the course space are underestimating stories. So it gives you an idea of kind of stories by product use right now. So when we look at things like WhatsApp or Snapchat, look how many people are using Instagram stories by comparison now, and even Facebook stories. Facebook stories is used nearly as much as the whole app of Snapchat now. So please don't disregard this as an opportunity. There's actually a huge opportunity to use stories. If you're not sure what I mean by stories, at the top of your Instagram feed or the top of your Facebook news feed, there's the little icons with people's photos at the top. When you click on those, it just plays through a series of photos or videos, and then it takes you to the next person and the next person and the next person. So the good thing with this is the huge opportunity to reach new markets and new audiences in new ways. So this is why it matters. Across all platforms, stories right now are attracting 500 million users per day. So the number of people watching stories is huge. Just because you don't use it doesn't mean that no one else is. We know that 70% of social users are watching stories daily. quite literally, I know even for a user like me, I will watch my stories every day, but I probably only scroll through a much shorter amount of my Instagram feed than I used to, for example. And we know stories now represent 25% of all Instagram content. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about Instagram, well, this is a Facebook webinar, but Instagram is owned by Facebook, and often what's successful on one platform then flows through to the other. So some of the great targeting of advertising on Facebook is now flowing through to Instagram, and the stories have flowed back from Instagram to Facebook. So it's important to think about. We know 1/3 of the most viewed Instagram stories are actually from businesses, so from pages rather than from individuals. So that's something really to think about. People are much more open to see brand messages on stories than they are in their feed. In fact, we know on this year, Instagram story views will overtake feed views at some point in 2019. So our question has to be, how long is it before Facebook does the same? The recent changes to Facebook prioritizing, again, even higher events and groups in the algorithm is also elevating the reach of stories. All right, I hope everyone's keeping up with this. I'm looking forward to all the great questions that are going to come at the end. So number 4, I want to look into a little bit more about live video. So by live video, I'm talking about anything that's going directly out to your audience. You're physically sitting in front of the camera live in that moment, and you're having back and forward communication. Live video is a huge opportunity. So live video is a bit of stories. You can do live stories. You can also do a Facebook Live. So that's a separate feature to video. You're not pre-recording it and then uploading it to Facebook. You're literally sitting in front of your camera, clicking live, the camera comes up and you're talking to your Facebook audience in that moment. What we know is the reach of these live videos are huge. They're cutting through really, really efficiently at the moment, and we're seeing some really great results from causes using live video. In fact, in a little while, I'm going to be talking to you about Facebook Giving, which is the donation platform. You can embed donation buttons directly into a Facebook Live video. So imagine how that's going to affect the fundraising launch for your organization of a big campaign. It's a really huge opportunity. So 1/3 of all online activity is now watching video. So the reach of video is enormous. And what we know is that with video, so images engage people 3 times more than just text on Facebook, right? Video is 3 times more than images, but live video is 6 times more than static video. So just get your head around that for a minute in terms of organic reach. You've got text, then you've got images, then pre-recorded video, then live video is being 6 times that. That's a massive increase in organic reach and engagement. So when some of you at the start were saying your biggest challenge was things like organic reach, reduced reach, reduced engagement, having zero budget, having a challenge around creating new content, live video is something you really need to explore. Now, I know it can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, and you can ask those questions of what types of videos to create, and I will touch on that a little bit for you. The main reasons why I'm pushing live right now is there are 8 billion video views per day on, that's just huge. That's just a huge number of people and the number of videos being watched every day on Facebook. In fact, more video is now being viewed every day on Facebook than it is on YouTube. So a lot of us are just still putting up content in YouTube and then sharing it on our Facebook instead of uploading it natively on Facebook. And that's definitely a big no-no. The other thing to think about is more than half of all video content is being viewed on mobile phones. So you need to think about how you're creating video now versus the old kind of horizontal shot video. Is that going to be the best way to go with your video created content on mobile? It's also when things like closed captioning comes in and is really important. We also know that around 70 to 80%, depending on the time, of videos are watched without sound. So what that means is we're on the bus, we're in the office, so we're scrolling through our Facebook feed. We don't necessarily click sound on. So if you don't have closed captions along the bottom, so the actual text that talks you through what they're saying, then a lot of people will keep scrolling. So closed caption on video is really important. Obviously on pre-recorded video, on lives, you're not going to have that option there. One of the other things I just thought I might mention that I didn't actually put into this presentation, there's a common question I get asked, is how long should a video be? A pre-recorded video, the optimal length is around 57 seconds. But when we're talking about a Facebook Live, the rules are all completely broken. The best Facebook Lives are 20 minutes or longer. So it seems really counterintuitive, right? But it's true. Short, snappy for pre-recorded video, and long and in-depth for live. One of the reasons being you need to be live for a while to start attracting people to come, them tagging their friends, to get a bit more organic reach, so more people start watching those Facebook Lives. And you can always turn those Facebook Lives into ads later or something else to drive them out to a bigger audience. So they're a great opportunity. One of the other reasons that we know Facebook Live is such a big opportunity on Facebook right now is that Facebook actually spent $50 million to pay celebrities to do Facebook Lives. You know, it kind of becomes pretty obvious then that Facebook really wants you using live, and anything Facebook wants you to use, it's going to prioritize in its feed. So what that means is the organic reach is going to be higher, your engagement is going to be higher because you're using the tool that Facebook wants to promote. Now let's talk about this in a not-for-profit context. So an example for you of something really simple in this space would be Kelly Chisholm. So Kelly works for a not-for-profit called the Foxglove Project. Now, she was one of the people that I encouraged quite a lot to get in front of video and start creating a lot more live video content. Initially, she was super nervous. The first few she did were lots of ums and ahs, and it felt a bit awkward. But the more she did it, the more she got comfortable with this kind of platform. And Facebook Live and Instagram Live have become some of their most effective marketing opportunities. To give you some context around that, they'd never really driven donations through an online platform before. From their live videos and talking about what they do, they raised about $45,000 through Facebook over the course of the last year. Even to the point when Kelly was struggling with office space, so they were expanding and quite literally still working out of their houses and co-working space and cafes. She was like, we're really struggling with this. I actually said, right, well, one of my mentors was saying to them, right, well, why don't you do a live video and talk about that? So she got online and she explained the challenge and how they were growing and what they were trying to do. And, you know, I think she showed the boxes piled up in her lounge room and said, we need office space, but we have a very limited budget for it. So we did a Facebook Live talking about this. The amazing thing was that meaningful interaction is that so many people suddenly came out and started doing sharing that post, commenting, tagging friends. And what happened really quickly is so many people started messaging her going, actually, we've got some space in our office that you could come and share. Sorry, guys, dropped out for a second. You could come and share our office, you could rent this space from us, you could do any one of these number of things. Then what we found that was coming up from that is then we actually had somebody coming through and going, you know what, we could actually donate an entire office to you. So they were given this amazing office space, over 100 square meters, totally for free. And what that actually did for the organization was they got it for, I think, even 2 years. You know, parking bays, office space, the whole kit and caboodle, and that came from a Facebook Live. And the cool thing was, it wasn't even one of their fans. It was one of their fans who commented and tagged someone else and shared it, and then it was one of their friends that then messaged and reached out to make that happen. So the organic reach is so much higher, and the cut-through is so much higher with video. All right, I hope you're all with me with this and you're all getting excited about all these amazing opportunities. I think the key with this is not to focus on what Facebook can't do anymore and what the negatives are, and instead focus on all the opportunities and what it can do. Let's talk about groups. So with the Facebook groups, I'd be really interested to know who's noticed that groups are showing up a lot more in the Facebook feed than pages. So me too. Particularly when that shift happened last year, all of a sudden, every second post in my feed was a group. So it was, you know, Australian Community Managers or the not-for-profit group, or it was, you know, any one of the female entrepreneur groups. Suddenly they were all over my feed. And I was seeing very little from any pages or brands anymore. So that's been a conscious shift they made last year about creating this meaningful interaction. I think the theory was groups are more interactive, therefore I get shown as a higher priority because there's more people having a discussion than there is on a page. So Facebook now prioritizes groups along with personal profiles way above pages. So there's an opportunity to consider for your organization whether there's a way you could do a private group instead of focusing all of your energy and funneling it just towards a page. Now, just to clarify for some of you who might not understand the different terms, so there's essentially 3 types of structures, primary structures you can have for a presence on Facebook. You can have a profile. That's basically an individual. So that's me, Alicia Hancock. I log in as me. I'm talking to people as me. It's an individual. I have to friend request someone, they accept, and that's how they join my community. Then you've got pages. Pages can be, I still have an Alicia Hancock Facebook page, which is my outward profile for talking to people about entrepreneurship and business and social media and charities and this kind of space. So you have a page generally as a brand. So the Cancer Council would have a page, Foxglove Project has a page, Hancock Creative has a page. Then the third category is groups, and groups is more about building a sense of community. You can have public, broad groups, and you can have private groups as well. So for example, if anyone's interested in checking it out, we have a public group called Change the World, completely free for anyone in the cause space to go and join and, you know, ask us questions about social media and get insights and information in that group. So that's one way we build a community of people around us in the not-for-profit sector, by having a free and public group. There are lots of different types of groups you could potentially look at setting up as a cause organisation. For example, you might want to set yourself up as a topic expert. So I was talking to the Dyslexia Association the other day. So they could set up a private group where it became, they would invite, like it was open, any parents could join, any educators, teachers, family and friends could be a part of that community. And it could be where they create discussion about dyslexia. What is it, how it works, what our challenges are. And it's not about the organisation pushing their message. It's about creating a safe space for people to have conversations about this topic. Yes, obviously the organisation owns that. They can then control the information to make sure what's going out there is accurate. They can build themselves up as the topic experts. That's fantastic when they're trying to attract potential new clients. It's great for putting themselves in the thought leadership space of they're the most knowledgeable people in the sector about this. So that's something to consider that you could do in a group. It's also great to build a private sense of community. So for us, that would be our Change the World group. It's about building a community of other people in the cause space and being able to chat to people and get feedback, etc. Then the next one could be a volunteering group. So a lot of not-for-profits we've worked with, like I remember working with Australian Red Cross in WA, they wanted to have an opportunity to build their volunteering program. So that was actually better off as a group, because they could invite people to join, they would be part of that community, and they could talk about maybe more personal stuff than they would on a public Facebook page. The challenges of volunteering, what they want to learn, the things they came across every day. That was a very engaged and effective group, because all their volunteers were in the group. Also, the great thing is, if I'm volunteering with you next week and I'm sick, I could post and they go, hey guys, not feeling too good. I'm supposed to be volunteering tomorrow. Can someone else take my spot? And chances are within a couple of minutes, someone's going to have jumped in and taken that volunteering spot, which is really effective. You can do the same with donors, clients, patients you're helping, families of people you're supporting, all could be in a private or public-based group. So I hope that gives you some ideas about some different ways you could potentially use a group for your organisation. It's also really valuable for you as your organisation to engage in other groups. Now, here's the interesting thing. I heard in the comments or questions at the start that someone said managing a group as an organisation is one of your biggest frustrations. They have actually taken that limitation away in the last few months. So you can now post in a group as a page. You can now interact in a group or own a group as a page. So if you go to the Hancock Creative Facebook page, you will see that we own a number of groups, including our Change the World group, our private cause collective or membership community, and our Gain and Retain groups, which are private groups for our program participants. You can interact now as a page within a group. This is a limitation that has been more recently removed. So if anyone's got any challenges around that, do reach out and we could definitely help you with that. All right, let's talk about another opportunity. Good, we're getting through this pretty quickly. I want to leave lots of time for questions and interaction at the end. Tina, do jump in if there's anything you think is really pressing that you want me to tackle. Otherwise, I'll kind of keep going. Probably second to meaningful interaction, I think the biggest opportunity you can explore is paid advertising. I know a lot of you have probably bought ads on Facebook before and feel like you've wasted your money. I hear that a lot. So there's an opportunity around boosting posts versus buying ads. And unfortunately, what happens if you're not quite sure what you're doing, it is actually really easy to spend a lot of money really, really quickly. And that's not cool. That's not what we want. So there are lots of opportunities with paid ads. And essentially what we're trying to do is amplify our message to our existing audience or to a new audience. There's a couple of different ways you can buy ads. There is something called boosting posts. So when we create a post on our page, we'll see the little boost button at the bottom. Within reason, boosting posts is a bit of a big stick. When it first came about, when we first was able to start boosting, the other methods of buying ads were a little bit complicated. So it was a little bit harder to do. So boosting was about making it easier to get your ads out there. But also at that time, the way we used social was quite different. We tended to only be friends with our peer group. So people roughly the same age, with the same interests, same hobbies, our immediate peers. So when we boosted a post to our people who like our page and their friends, it was a pretty good assumption that you would net similar types of people and they would then grow your audience. The truth is, we don't use Facebook like that anymore. So as well as being connected to my peer group, I'm also connected to, my mother-in-law and, my husband's cousin who lives in Denmark and, different people all around the world at different levels of experience, people I went to university with. There's such a diverse group of people that you're connected to that sometimes boosting can just become a really fast way to waste money. So the only way I would really, without a lot of understanding the ad platform, the best way I would recommend you boost posts is by boosting posts to people who already like your page. So say you've got an audience of 2,000 people, you could boost a post for $3 or $4 just to people who like your page. And that's a great way of increasing your reach and your engagement. Because when paid reach happens and paid engagement happens, organic reach and engagement increases as well. Because when they comment, their friends see it organically as well as the impact of the paid. Hope that makes sense. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. Otherwise, there are ways to set up targeting within Boost, but it starts to get a little bit more complicated than we probably have the time to get into in this webinar. But I'm sure if you wanted to do another webinar on paid advertising, that's definitely something Tina and the team could look at with us. The other type of advertising is through a tool called Ads Manager. So literally facebook.com/ads manager. That's where we can actually build customized ads to a particular goal. So your goal might be to get more traffic to your website. Your goal could be getting more engagement on your post. It could be getting app downloads, or you can even do a conversion. So I want to spend $1.23 for each new volunteer that fills out our volunteering form on our website. That's something you can build in Ads Manager using things like Facebook Pixels. So this is measured to a specific outcomes. And this ties back quite heavily to point number 2. You need to know the ROI and the outcome you want to create an effective ad spend. What I often see is people who do an ad spend and go, that was really successful. We reached 50,000 people. Okay, great. So what was the end net result? Oh, we reached 50,000 people. That's not a great outcome. It's just, again, one of those kind of vanity numbers. It's great you reach a lot of people, but if those people didn't become clients for your NDIS service or donors or volunteers or in some way joined what you're doing or supported your organization, it probably didn't really drive you any specific outcome or result. Then there's next level types of advertising that you can explore with things like custom audience targeting, lookalike audience targeting. There are lots of different ways we can do that. But some examples of ways you could target. So working with Perth Children's Hospital Foundation, they filled 280 volunteering spots with Facebook ads with just a spend of $75. So when I'm talking about ads, you don't need thousands of dollars to spend on Facebook. You can get outcomes with really small spends. Likewise, this campaign from Lifeline, they did a video-based campaign going back a few years, and it cost $25 in ad spend. And that campaign reached 600,000 people and raised $12,000. So, that's not a bad kind of metric. And even something a bit different, like a education-based cause called Live, Learn, Survive, were driving traffic back from the Australian tourism website and drove a 1,000% increase in visits to their website and inquiries to what they did. So these are the kind of outcomes you're going to look at. The other thing a lot of people don't know exists, particularly in this not-for-profit space, is the retargeting feature. Facebook has the best retargeting options available. What tends to happen when we've got zero budget or minimal budget and we're time poor is we miss out on so many easy, low cost opportunities. So one of those best opportunities is around retargeting people from actions they've already taken. So here's an example. Most of us have probably at one time or another set up a Facebook event. So we've actually set up the date, the time, the location, set up as an event attached to our page. A lot of people will click that they're interested or they're going, but they never translate to actually buying a ticket to the event. And that's a constant challenge I see with organizations. Most of them are really surprised to learn there's actually a retargeting feature in Ads Manager where you can just retarget ads just to people that have clicked interested or going. So the cool thing with that is if you're paying per 1,000 people reached and you've only got 200 people that said they're interested, you can literally get those ads in front of those people for $5 and $10 of really, really low spends and get a really high return. Chances are if they clicked interested, they might have just forgotten, meant to come back to it, got busy. So if you had ads going to them going, hey, I saw you clicked interested in our ad on our event, don't forget it's in 2 weeks, buy a ticket now, or maybe a discounted offer or some kind of special deal or early bird rate, that is highly effective to getting people to buy a ticket to your event. Likewise, you can target people that have visited your website. So there's a reasonable assumption if they've been on your website, they're looking for help for whatever your course does or is looking for more information. So you can have ads running all the time with a really small ad spend, say $20 a month, that's just targeting people who've been to your website in the last 30 days. You can also retarget people who went to a specific page on your website. For example, your volunteer page or your donation page. And you can retarget them going, hey, I saw that you checked out our donation page. Here's a little video story about what we do that might make things a bit clear for you. And look, we would really appreciate, every dollar from $2, every donation from $2 up is tax deductible. And you could have that going just to people who'd already looked at your donation page. Very low cost, very high return. You can also do ads to people that have interacted with you recently on Facebook or Instagram. You can retarget people who've watched your video. So if you've got a great explainer video about what you do, you could retarget people who've watched at least 70% of your video with a call to action to donate. Much more likely to donate, much cheaper form of advertising. So please do think about retargeting as an option if it's something you've never explored. Right, number 7 is Facebook Messenger. A lot of us think about Facebook in terms of the main news feed, but Messenger is a growing opportunity for causes and one that very few of you are exploring fully yet. One of the main reasons it's so awesome is Facebook Messenger gets an 80% open rate. When we compare that to an email, that even as good as it is in the not-for-profit sector, getting around 26, 27% open rate, it's 80% on a Facebook message. So there are a lot of different ways you could use Messenger to reach out to specific people you want to get your message in front of. So one of the first options you could look at is something called chat blasting. Basically, you can embed an app or a tool that what you're essentially doing is, how you send out an email to your list? Say you got 2,000 people on your email list and you send out newsletters or information to that list every week or every month. You're doing the same thing, but you're sending it out through people's Facebook Messenger. With that open rate being so high, it naturally stands the outcome is going to be proportionately higher through something like chat blasting. There's also ad platforms you can build that drives people to send us a message. So if you find often the people who come to your cause are in a vulnerable place, they're a bit nervous about picking up the phone and calling you, perhaps, like sexual health quarters, we're talking about teenagers who are a little bit scared about mum and dad finding out, they don't want to get on the phone, it's all a bit scary. Doing an ad that drives people to send us a message where they can, behind their computer screen, ask these embarrassing questions without having to be face-to-face with someone who's scary and a doctor, they can actually drive people to a send a message ad. And that can drive much more real, meaningful interaction and comments back and forward. Another thing to think about is a bot. So a bot is essentially like a robot that sits behind your messenger. This can do things like automate frequent questions. So if you find you're always getting the same questions over and over, like how do I donate, how do I volunteer, what do you do, where does the money go, set questions like that, you could actually set up a really cool little bot in your Facebook Messenger. So when somebody opens your Facebook Messenger to send you a message, it'll pop and go, hi, what would you like to know? And you can have 4 or 5 drop downs. What do we do, where our money goes, what programs we run, or you could have you know, which categories most suits you. I'm a family, I'm a not-for-profit, I'm an individual. And then that can, when they click on it, will then go to another series of questions, another series of questions, and give them all the information and answers that you want to get to them. So the good thing with that is if you get a lot of Facebook messages now with questions, it's a way to automate that so your team doesn't have to do so much of that work. You could also use that kind of plugin to let people know about donation campaigns, volunteering opportunities, etc. You can also use some of this chat blasting and the bots to send things like reports, white papers, a video about your new fundraising campaign. You can see how this could be really powerful, right? All right, number 8 is Facebook Giving. Relatively new feature, but I hope you're all checking it out. I know the vast majority of people on here are registered not-for-profits or charities. So Facebook Giving, if you don't know about it, is definitely something you want to explore. It's basically an embedded feature within Facebook that allows people to fundraise for you or for you to run a digital fundraising campaign. This has been running in the US since 2015. So far, it's raised over $1 billion for not-for-profits and causes. Like that's with the B, 1 billion. That's a huge amount of money that has been raised using this platform. So I'm really encouraging you to get involved in this and set it up, register through Facebook Giving, through the PayPal Giving program. And what this means is anyone in Australia can run their own fundraising campaign on Facebook for you. Now, some people are nervous of this because they think, well, what can they just take the money for themselves? They cannot. If you are not registered with Facebook Giving and PayPal Giving and somebody does a fundraising campaign for you, PayPal will receive the money and PayPal will go to the ACNC and find your organization's registered charity address and then post you a check. So if anyone's randomly had a check from PayPal, this is where it's come from, a fundraising campaign someone has run. This stuff is only going to get bigger. Facebook has been trialing a new volunteering opportunity. So if you look at the left, we've got a screenshot. You can do a new See Local volunteering opportunities. So if I've been searching for volunteering or volunteering related information, you could be promoting your volunteering opportunity to me for free through Facebook. Again, this Facebook Giving is free. They don't take any money. 100% of the donated money goes to you. And they're also about to launch Instagram donation stickers in Australia as well. It's being tested in the US at the moment. So people will soon be able to have a sticker on your post that people can click to donate. And now that so many of us have Apple Pay on our phone, these donations are quite simple as click $2 thumb on our screen or the face, approval, and then the money's come out of our Apple Pay on our phone with literally a single click. It's amazing. Now, before I go to questions, the last thing I really wanted to discuss with you is the multi-platform strategy. Here's the truth about Facebook. Facebook is incredibly powerful. There are a lot of really huge opportunities for nonprofits now that you could explore that you haven't done before. So things like groups, things like Messenger, things like live video, these are all incredible opportunities. But Facebook is much harder to get a result from than it was even a year ago, let alone 2 years ago. So the best advice I can give you is if you want to spend zero on Facebook ads, you are too scared to do a live, I'd recommend you get over that and give it a go and get more comfortable with it. But if these things don't sit with you, then your best opportunity is to have a multi-platform strategy, which I mean is don't put all your eggs in one basket on Facebook. You are better off now exploring other channels, investing more time in Instagram, investing a lot more time in LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a huge opportunity for not-for-profits and causes right now that I feel that they're missing out on. So if you think Facebook's not for you, these opportunities didn't resonate, I would consider spreading some of your message to a different platform where you can still get that free and organic reach that's not available so readily on Facebook anymore. All right. I hope that was all really useful. I'm sure we've got lots of questions come through, so please jump into questions now. I think we've got about another 10 minutes or so. I'm happy to keep answering questions. Let's see what some of the common themes are and tackle those. And then if you have more specific questions, do put them into chat. If I can, I will make some time to come back to you and try and answer those for you over the next few days. And I'm sure the fantastic team that Tina has could organise to send them around to you. All right. Tina, do you want to take over and start hitting me with some questions?
Definitely, we have loads and loads of questions, so we'll try to get through as many as we can today. If we don't get
Let's
around
do
to
it.
your question, then as Alicia said, we will answer them offline and send the script out to everybody. So, first one, has anyone else noticed the trend in users 13 to 30-year-olds has decreased dramatically? Is it because so many parents are now on Facebook? I manage NFP youth groups and young adult events, and what used to be a great resource in Facebook now doesn't appear to be so effective as it once was.
Great question. So the truth of that is a little bit different to what you think. So the younger audiences have not left Facebook. People tell me all the time the young people aren't there anymore. They are still there. They just use social media differently to, say, myself being in my 30s. So we tend to embrace one channel or two channels and use them really regularly and share most of our content that way. The way our teenagers are using social is different. They use each platform for its own purpose. So they use TikTok for music, they're using LinkedIn to look at career opportunities, they're using Facebook to connect with family, they're using Instagram for videos. So they are spread across multiple channels. So the question you need to ask instead is it Facebook the right audience to reach them, or would you get better cut through on one of the other platforms through a multi-channel tool? So we know that the younger audiences are very heavily on Instagram stories, they're more engaged in Snapchat, WhatsApp. Perhaps you would look at another platform there. The other trick with that question as well is we've really had a broad audience brush there, 13 to 30. What a 13-year-old cares about and a 30-year-old cares about is so different. You need to narrow down those audience profiles a little bit more. And I would be doing a 13 to 16, 17 audience, a 17 to 23, and then I'd break that into different audiences and probably look at where we find them most effectively.
Okay, the next one, I have combined several questions that are very similar. Do you
Great.
have to set an audience for each post or for the page? And should you have different pages for different audiences?
Great question. Very strategic question. So I can't give you a really clear answer. To be honest, we do a thing called a strategy day when we work with an organization for a whole day to set these kind of answers and these kind of rules for your organization. So please contact me if that's something you want to look into a little bit more. Broad strokes, I guess what I'd be looking at is how fundamentally different are your audiences. So for example, if your volunteers are retirees, your donors are big corporate donations, and then your users of your service are teenagers, they can't easily be communicated through the same platform in the same way. I would consider in that instance a multi-platform strategy where I did my corporate white collar workers on LinkedIn. I went to my retirees through Facebook because there are more grandparents on Facebook than CEOs on LinkedIn. And I would probably go through my younger audience through an Instagram stories or Snapchat if your resources allowed it. The truth is, I'm never going to recommend a 3-channel strategy to someone who is part-time or volunteer based because it's not going to be that effective. We're going to figure out what your lowest hanging fruit opportunity is and where you're best able to put your resources. If you can spread it out, great. What I wouldn't try to do is speak to all 3 of those audiences through a Facebook page. You're not going to be able to treat them effectively. If your audiences are very similar but a bit different, so for example, if you're a disability services organization, and this particular disability can affect anyone from a 12-year-old to a 60-year-old, you could do that on the one Facebook page. But then I would use that targeting option. So use the little drop-down menu next to post to retarget. If you don't have that setting turned on, reach out to us and we can help you with that. And then you could go, I want this, I would write my copy slightly differently for the younger group, slightly different for your mid group, and then slightly different for your retirees. Then if I log in, I'm only seeing the message that's really language to what I'm dealing with rather than what a teenager is dealing with or a retiree. Otherwise, I don't think you really care about me personally. So there's a couple of different ways you can go. It really depends on a lot of factors, but I hope that was helpful enough for those of you who needed that answer.
Okay. Just to let you all know, I am sending some messages through to people to let them know that Alicia will answer your questions offline, only because some of the questions require a lot of information. So I will send those
Yeah.
through afterwards.
And
So
your other
next,
option as well is that, sorry to interrupt,
No,
Tina. The
that's
other
all right.
option as well is we do have that free group called Change the World, which comes off the back of our big Change the World event. If you want to jump in there and access requests to that, you can be asking lots of these questions of us all the time, and we're really happy to keep answering those in more detail in that group as well, if that's useful.
Yep, and a lot of the questions were, what is the Change the World Facebook group link? So, Alicia, if you could send that to me after this webinar, I'll send it out to
Will
everybody
do.
with the recording. Okay, so the next question, how far in advance should you let your followers know about that you are going live?
Great question. So it depends on what you're doing. Like if it's a massive fundraising launch and you want a lot of engagement, I'd be promoting that almost a month in advance. So I'd be setting it up as an event on my Facebook page. I'd be posting about it for a while. This is the speaker. This is us getting ready. This is what we're going to be talking about. I'm really excited. Like tell it as a long form story. It kind of depends on what it is. If it's more just an update on what's going on in your office that day, you could probably let people know you're going live in an hour. But otherwise, that's why lives tend to be longer, because people will start to see that you've gone live and start joining in throughout the presentation. So I guess it would depend on the strategic outcome. If you wanted to do a donation campaign with an embedded donate button, I'd be promoting that heavily for probably 30 days in advance. If I was just doing something small, I'd maybe post the day before and going, hey, I'm going live on my page tomorrow at 12 o'clock to do Q&A about social media, come and join me. Then that would probably be like a day or two's notice.
Okay. Does organic reach only go to people who like your page in the first place, so we will need to get likes?
No. So great question as well. Fantastic question. So organic reach and the number of likes on your page aren't as connected as people think. So for example, if we look at it this way, if 100 people like your Facebook page and one person then comments, you will then get organic reach among that commenter's friends. So that commenter's friends are likely to see that, and they maybe don't actually like your page for the first place. So that's why getting page likes is no longer as important as getting that kind of organic reach and engagement, because it can be more effective to reach friends of friends. As in the Foxglove example, when she did an offer space, it wasn't a follower that saw that, it was the friend of a friend and got them the opportunity they wanted. So yeah, they don't have to like your page to see it organically.
Okay. How long does a Facebook story last for?
That is a really good question, and I should know the answer off the top of my head. I'm not 100% sure. I think they're around, so Instagram was sort of 7 hours. I think they're like 24 hours with Facebook, but that's a great question, and I would double check that and give you the exact number, but it's a day or less. Most of the stories disappear pretty quickly.
Okay. Is premiering video the same as shooting a live video?
No. So Facebook Premiere is different again. So there's it's not as effectively used at the moment. Essentially, you're rolling out a pre-record in a live kind of fashion. I know that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So the idea is, if I wanted to launch a fundraising campaign, I could have a whole pre-recorded sequence and have all this video that I want to launch, set like an event or a premiere, so it goes live at a set time and it gets played and announced publicly. It's like the premiere of a movie. They're not shooting the movie live in the room, but it's the first time anyone's seeing it. So it's premiering something new. I'm not finding as great a results from that space yet as I am just the good old fashioned Facebook Live. And the Facebook Lives don't have to be that polished either, guys. Like it can be really real and raw and just you guys chatting and taking questions from the audience. It doesn't have to be so pre-prepared. It doesn't have to look beautiful.
Is it worth working on getting other pages to like your page? Does it help, and how?
Not really. What's more effective is for you as your page to engage with other relevant pages. So to give you an example, the dyslexia organisation I was speaking to the other day, it would be really useful for them if there was also, say there's a page where parents follow to get recommendations on great children's books. It would be useful for Dyslexia Foundation to be commenting on posts there and going, oh, I love that book as well. It's really great for kids with, reading difficulties because it's nice and simple to read. That's effective, because then as a mum who's looking at that content and they go, oh, they've got some good tips. I then click on their link to their page and go, oh, I want to follow them, and I will then follow you that way. So I would rather you as a page commenting in groups and on other pages than I would necessarily just trying to get other pages to like you, because again, it doesn't really do anything all that tangible.
Okay, we have a support group for each state. Should we consolidate them into one national group?
Say that again, Tina. So a support group.
Yep, so we have a support group for each state. Should we consolidate them into one national group?
Um, my questions around that would be about strategy. Does every state provide the exact same type of support? Is there any support that is location based? And are your audiences different in different states? So, for example, if you've got people in rural, remote areas in one group versus the city, if if everybody is substantially similar, so most of the people in the support group around Australia are all same sort of people, you're giving them the same kind of advice, they're having the same kind of challenges, I would roll them together, because then you're going to have a more valuable community. Your reach is going to be higher because there's more people engaging, more people doing interaction. You will successfully reach more people as a larger national group than a smaller individual group. If the needs of each group are really different and people are asking advice specifically to WA versus New South Wales, then I'd keep them separate. So that would be kind of a little bit more of a strategy based question, but there are advantages of both ways depending on what you want to achieve out of that group. And the other question to ask is, would people be less inclined to share if the group gets really, really big? Will they feel less comfortable sharing their problems?
Okay, would you recommend, would you recommend this when an organisation is limited in staff or small amount of resources? What is the best way to manage these? And I think that refers to Facebook groups.
The good thing with groups is that they're actually less management required necessarily than a page in a lot of ways, because the community is managing for you. So you could have multiple people starting conversations. A page has to be you all the time. In a group, you can loosen the reins a little bit. A couple of ideas there if you're resource poor. One, have really good community rules. So be really clear about what's acceptable and what's not in your group. Then people will call other people out on breaking the rules and go, admin, please delete. That makes it easier for you to monitor what's going on. Secondly, if you've got people, for example, let's use the support group example. If you've got people in your support group that are super active, that are always in there, that have been with you a long time, you could always invite them to become a group admin and then encourage them to uphold the community group rules and be managing some of that for you. That can be a really effective way of getting some extra help and support in running a group without it being such a amount of pressure on you. And again, strategically, this would depend on how controversial the topic on discussion is. If it's dyslexia and it's parents just talking about their challenges, you probably don't need as much community management and governance on that as it was perhaps a legal society giving legal advice to migrants, who you've got to be very careful that the advice given is correct.
Okay, the next one is, I have heard that once you pay for ads, Facebook makes it a lot harder to go back to increasing organic reach. Is this true?
Not to our knowledge, not to any of our tests has that ever been proven. So what is often misconceived that way is the fact that when you pay for reach, your organic reach also increases. So therefore, when you stop paying for ads, your organic reach decreases. The simple rule of thumb to look at is what organic reach is. Organic reach is when I comment or share a post and then my friends start to see it. So if you pay money for me to comment, then organically my friends are going to see it because you've paid for me to comment. So organic reach proportionately increases with paid advertising. So some people misconceive that as when they stop paying for it, they stop getting organic reach. It's only because that my friends aren't going to see it because you didn't pay for me to see it. So I hope that makes sense. I don't know if that comes across clearly, but they are tied. But what happens when you stop buying ads? You'll just go straight back to the natural organic reach you would have had regardless.
Okay. The next question is around the Facebook donations. It seems that a few people from New Zealand have commented and said, can you do this in New Zealand? It doesn't seem to be available.
Good question. I actually don't know. So I will check on that for you, because I'm actually going to be going over to New Zealand with Tina and an amazing team at Connecting Up in August. So I probably should have an answer to that question. So I'm in contact with the Facebook giving team in Australia. So let me reach out to them and see if they have a release date for it. If it's not already out in New Zealand, I'd love to see where it is. Generally, ANZ roll out together. So Australia and New Zealand normally get the same features roughly the same time. So if it's not there yet, it could would be, I know they had a lot of difficulty bringing it to Australia because the functionality in the US of how a charity is registered is really different to Australia. So they ended up doing it as a partnership with PayPal here, as a way to actually transfer the money. They may have had some similar difficulties with New Zealand. So let me reach out and try and get an answer for you on that.
Okay. As a user of Facebook, I'm yet to receive a blast from an organization, and I feel I'd be a bit annoyed if I received a blast message. Is there a risk that the backlash could be really strong given Messenger is personal, whilst the open rate is 80%? Are there any stats on backlash or complaints about this new feature?
Whenever there's a new feature or a new way to advertise to people, I always get this question on every single platform since the beginning of time. To be honest, when Facebook ads first came out, people went, will there be a backlash for putting paid ads into people's news feeds because that's personal? Will I get a backlash if I put, ads in my Instagram stories? It's often just the fear of the unknown. One of the important things to remember is your audience may not be the same as you. If you're not an active Facebook user, you don't get these kind of things regularly, you might be more wary of them, but you might actually not be the target market you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach a younger audience or a highly tech savvy audience, for example, they're very used to using these platforms in these ways. So yes, that's always possible. The other thing I would think about is you need to be strategic about what you're sending them. If you literally just drop something highly salesy into a private message and go, you should donate $25 right now, and there's no context, no anything, there'll be a backlash because people go, that's not genuine, we don't care. You need to be really strategic about what you're sharing with them and share instead, a win story, or like I get lots of them. So often what I get shared are things like, oh, there's this really cool like article we've written, or we did a really great webinar. You might want to watch on pre-record or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And when I get into that, there's generally a follow-up afterwards where I'm going to go, hope you enjoyed that webinar. Now you might actually want to donate to that campaign we're talking about. Here's some information on how you can do that. So that's what I would talk about, being more strategic and not just hitting people over the head with a big stick, because that's never going to work very well anyway. The other thing as not-for-profits to remember is there's a lot of fear about losing people and getting a backlash. On the flip side, the biggest risk to our not-for-profit sector is that organisations are closing at a huge rate of knots because you're not innovating and you're not trying new tools because you're scared of them. And what that means is you're losing donations. We know statistically 80% of people under the age of 25 have only ever donated through a social media platform. This audience is getting older. They're getting to be bigger and bigger donors. If you don't embrace some of this stuff and actually give it a crack, by the time this audience grows, you're really going to struggle to get some of this financial support from this market. So the backlash is worth the risk, because ultimately, if you raise $50,000 through a chat blast and you pissed off maybe 50 people, I still think that's a pretty good outcome.
Okay, next question. What is the best time of the day to go live?
Really difficult question to answer. So there are stats you can Google that says what the optimal time is for Facebook Lives as a whole to get watched. I would say you need to be more strategic and look at that audience profile. So who are you trying to get? If you're trying to get mums with young kids who are going to volunteer during the day to come and work for your organisation, I'm not going to recommend you go live at 8 o'clock in the morning, because mums are getting their kids ready for school and that's the most frantic time of day. It's not going to work. I'm also not going to do it at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. I'm probably going to do either a live in the middle of the day, or I'm going to do it of an early evening once the kids are in bed and you're starting to, sit back instead of watching TV. I'm going to watch my Facebook Live. So I would really look at how does your audience use social media through your analytics and understand how they would best use it. And often that's just a case of testing. Sometimes we put so much time and effort into our first Facebook Live and then nobody shows up. You're better off just getting in there, having a go, experimenting, doing lots of them, and then you'll get comfortable faster as your audience builds as well. And then you can test and you'll figure out for yourself which ones do better.
Great. Do people have access to Facebook Live video after the event via the page?
Yes, so a Facebook Live video doesn't delete when it's finished. It actually stays on the page as a post. The cool thing with that is, for example, if you did a Facebook Live to launch a fundraising campaign, so we're about to do the city to surf, and it's the launch and it's announced, and here's the dates and locations, here's all the questions you need to know, here's how you donate. There could be a donation button going on the screen while this is running, and it becomes a 15-20 minute complete overview of your fundraising campaign. You can actually turn that into an ad. And you can push that live video out to potential participants or donors and actually put advertising spend behind that. That's really effective. That can work really, really well. And it's pretty easy to create. You don't need a videographer. You can just do it with your laptop or your smartphone really easily in your own office. So they don't disappear. So it's not disappearing content. They will stay on your feed, and you can retarget people who watch it as well. Great
Okay.
questions.
Lots of great questions. Is a particular demographic more likely to use stories, specifically age demographics?
Yes. So again, it does vary a little bit, but in March I went to the US and I spent some time at something called South by Southwest, which is a big technology conference. And I actually saw the two guys who founded Instagram, and they came and did a presentation, which was amazing. And one of the things that was really interesting is they didn't expect that Instagram stories would have a really different audience to the feed, but it is evolving that way. Although the use of stories is increasing and the audience is getting broader, initially the audience of stories tends to skew younger than the main news feed. If we were going to be really broad with the studies, we know that people under the age of 25 are more likely to use stories than they are the newsfeed. So it does skew younger. So similar to the Snapchat kind of audience, your sort of 13 to early 20s would be more active on stories if I had to kind of draw a line in the sand. But there are also plenty of people like me who are addicted to stories as well. So there are certainly outlier audiences, and it is shifting every time the stats come out because it is still relatively new.
Okay, so we've still got lots of questions, so I'll just go through maybe 2 or 3
Let's do a
more,
couple.
and then
Yeah, let's do a couple more, and then
yeah,
we'll try and follow up the rest afterwards.
yeah,
Otherwise, we could all be here all day.
I think we could. Okay, how do you get around Messenger? It always sends a message as me and not our page.
Oh, that is odd. That's kind of a more of a technical question that I'd probably have to look at how you're set up. Um, I'm just trying to think. So when you're talking about things like chat blasting and that kind of messenger stuff, so there's a couple of different things to think about here. One, Facebook doesn't make it easy for you to reach out to people as a brand to stop spamming and privacy. So if you just randomly pick someone on Facebook and go, I want to send them a message as Hancock Creative, it can't be done. Facebook will block that because it sees the potential for me just to pick 1,000 random people and as my company start messaging them crap. So that's not how this works. If somebody's messaging you or engaging with your brand, you should be able to then message them through the tool. When we talk about chat blasting, it's a bit like email. So you can't just go online and find 100 random emails and email those people. That's not how email lists work either. You have to build your email list over time because people opt in or put their name down on a sheet and say they want to get it. Facebook messages the same. You need an opt-in option. So there can be there's a lot of tools and apps you can do it in that make it really easy. And there's also some functionality within the Facebook Messenger to set some of this stuff up yourself. But it's still the same. You actually have to build a list of people that have opted in to receive your messages. You're not just randomly texting strangers because Facebook doesn't allow that. So most likely if it's converting to your personal profile, it's because you're trying to message someone that hasn't opted in to hear messages from your brand.
Okay, if I was to set up a group, should I add people who like my page to the group, or how do I kick things off?
Good question. So you can't directly add people from your page as such. Well, there are ways you can. Generally, I would start with what's my community. So I would be posting on your page and maybe boosting that out so everyone on your page sees it and goes, this is the group, this is what the purpose. So you get the right people and you don't just duplicate the same audience. Or if you've got a big database of 5,000 people that have volunteered, email them and go, we're going to invite you to this new private group. If you've got a list of support workers, you could do the same. So I would probably look at how do you start it off by using other channels. And then every time someone's speaking to a support worker going, oh, by the way, we actually have this group that you might want to join. that's probably the way I would go to start building up that audience.
Okay, last
We do
question.
one more. Yeah.
Yep, this seems to be a very, very common one because I had several people ask this same question.
Yep.
So to be effective on social media, it looks like there is quite a lot to know. How do you go about it when you have two part-time people in your organization or very minimal staff?
I hope this doesn't sound coming the wrong way, but come to us. That's what we do. So I guess this is the purpose of Hancock Creative. We train not-for-profits and we work with organizations that are volunteer-based, part-time. So this is kind of the gap we fill because a lot of not-for-profits aren't thriving in this space because they can't find the information they need easily enough to do it themselves. So there's a couple of ways to go. You could either do watching lots of YouTube videos, doing lots of reading on Social Media Examiner and Mashable, spend a lot of time figuring this stuff out and then delivering it yourself, or you can go to someone who can help you develop the strategy for the resource you have and focus you just on the bit you do need to know. And I guess that's the gap we fill in with not-for-profits. We get a lot of people coming to us and go, right, we've got 5 hours a month for our social media. What should we be doing? And then we help you develop that strategy plan of going, right, well, what are the resources? Who are you trying to achieve? What are the goals? And then we can help you go, right, for the hours you have, this is all you need to know right now. Let's do that. Let's do that effectively, get it working. And then once you're getting results and it's actually driving revenue and donations, then maybe you can reinvest some of that money into increasing your team or reinvest into marketing. And then we go to maybe another platform. That's generally how we'd work. But I want you to know that this is doable. Like most of the clients I work with are part-time. A lot of them are volunteers. A lot of them are wearing lots of hats. It's the fundraising manager who's doing the social, or it's the marketing manager, but they're also doing PR, advertising, every single thing in their organization. That is really normal in this space. So I'd say access as much of the free resources as you can. So join our Change the World group where we do lots of free education. We've got one called Cause Collective, which is just a community-based one where we do a lot more hands-on strategy and suggestions. It's like $7 a month. And then we have free events called Change the World throughout the year that we do training and we send out lots of information for free. If you want to invest in actually doing social media effectively, quickly, reach out to us on any of the contact information on the screen. We could either do a one-on-one mentoring session or look at something bigger like strategy planning for your organization. But do reach out. We're here to help. We're not scary. Just pick up the phone, pop us an email. I'm always more than happy to help and give you some just general advice anyway.
Great. Thanks, Alicia. Did you want to add anything else before we wrap up?
No, look, thank you so much, everyone, for the amazing questions. You've been really engaged. It's always hard with a webinar that I'm just talking to myself in my office. I really appreciate the great questions, the great engagement. I really hope that was useful. And look, if you have any feedback, obviously we would love to get an idea from that feedback of how we can do this better next time, how we can give more value. And I will attempt to go through as many of these questions as I can over the next week or so and send that information through to Tina. I know today I'm back-to-back meetings all day, but I will get to that as soon as I can and she can share that as well as the group link. Please do come and join our group as well. But thank you so much for your patience and I really hope there's some valuable lessons in there. And if you do get some really good outcomes from things you've learned, please reach out to us and let us know as well. We always love to hear those kind of success stories.
Fantastic. And Alicia, if you could send me through the links to all the groups that you have referred to in the webinar, I will share that with everybody and give them the opportunity to join. So thank you so much for presenting today. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you've all learned a lot from the presentation and that your questions have been answered. If you do have any other questions that come to mind later or any feedback about the webinar, please send that through to events@connectingup.org and we can answer those questions offline. You can also contact Alicia directly via the information on your screen. Don't forget the recording will be available on our website very shortly and a link will be sent to you, so keep an eye out on your inbox. Again, thank you for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks everyone.